The macroorganisms are those larger organisms that can easily be seen. Include, can mention some that you know live in soil. For example, earthworms. Nematodes, roundworms. A lot of them, let's just call them nematodes because they have pinworms, those worms that enter people who use their garden barefooted. So they find their way through their feet into their body. Those are pinworms, but there are many more other worms that are found within the soil. Snails, small rodents like rats, frogs too. These small organisms, macroorganisms, are very important in soil because they make burrows or tunnels. These tunnels, I can imagine an earthworm burrowing its way through the soil, even small insects. Now what does that do? It allows air to enter into soil. So by aeration we mean the air within soil because it's very important. For example, the roots need it to also breathe. They don't find their way up above the surface to breathe. They use the air within the soil. So these macroorganisms make a very big role for that matter. Also, they add to humus. Humus is very important in adding to the fertility of soil, making it better for plants to be able to grow and thrive within that soil. They also mix what we mean there is as they dig their way through, they bring the soil that was below to come up, and then the soil that was on top finds its way to the bottom, and in that way they enable, just the way you would use a hoe to mix up soil. They do it, though each of them does it to a small extent in its own ability, but it still adds up to enable parts of soil to mix in the different layers of soil. They also bring about biological weathering. Now, biological weathering is when living organisms take part in breaking down big rock particles to make small soil particles. That is weathering. Weathering is like in soil formation. For example, as they move by the rocks, small particles break off. Now those very few small particles accumulate over so many years, so that we end up with soil, the soil that we know. Okay, some of the importances of these organisms, but they also bring about decay of organisms, some of them. For example, some large fungi that live within soil, they feed on that decaying matter because fungi feed on decaying matter, and in that way they bring about recycling of materials. So that's about the macroorganisms, and now we're going to look at another component of soil. Another component of soil is air. Is there air in soil? Yes, there is. How do I know? Because if I put soil in water, or I add water to soil, some bubbles will escape out of the soil. that is air escaping in form of bubbles to the atmosphere. So soil is made up of air. How important is this air? It's very, very important in enabling respiration in plant roots. So we said plant roots cannot find their way to the surface, so they use the little air that's found within the soil to be able to carry out respiration. It's also important for germinating seeds. So the oxygen if we plant a seed in a place that is airtight, that does not have air, there's no way it's going to be able to germinate, because oxygen is one of the needs that a seed requires to be able to grow into a small seedling. Not just that, it also supports respiration in the small organisms we have looked at. So, air contains oxygen, which supports respiration in living organisms. The respiration provides them with the energy they need to do their life, their daily life, moving, reproducing, catching prey, running from prey, and all that. The nitrogen in air can be converted to nitrates. The nitrates we have talked about that are very important for plants to be able to grow well, form chlorophyll, which they need also to carry out photosynthesis. And the other one that we can maybe talk about is that air supports and enables decay. Actually, the organisms that we say that bring about decaying need air. They need oxygen to be able to break down the different parts of the dead organisms or the dead body, plant body or animal body, so that it can be able to decay. So those are some of the importances of air. Another important component of soil is water. You know its importance. How do you know? Because if you don't take it, you're very thirsty, you feel restless, you feel the only thing you need at that moment is to take water. That's it with every other organism. It needs water so badly. So, the importance of water is that first and foremost, it softens soil so that the roots can easily find their way through, grow their way through the soil. That is why in very hard soils, the roots are, some of them are just on the surface, or those that grew, they grew very deep into the soil and it's very hard to remove them. So just plant roots actually. Even the passage of the small organisms we talked about, like the earthworms. If the soil is as hard as desert soil, it's not that easy for them. But when it rains, or when the soil becomes softer, they easily find their way through the soil. Another importance of water is that it enables germination. It's part of the requirements for germination to take place. Okay. how much happens is that the seeds take in a lot of water and they swell. They swell and the seed coat softens. That enables the first root to burst out of the seed, anchor itself, and then the leaves can also find their way up. So it's used for the germination of seeds. That's why most of the seeds are planted in seasons that are more likely to have more rains than others. The raw materials that is used and together with carbon dioxide to make carbohydrates that are stored as starch or sucrose within a plant body, so it's important in photosynthesis. Respiration is the process by which plants lose their water in form of water vapor to the immediate surrounding of their leaf surface. Now, just the way we sweat off water vapor when it's hot, something applies to these plants. They lose water in form of water vapor, and in that way they lose their heat energy, because if they don't do that, inside the cells might get damaged, so they bring about cooling, just the way it happens in animals like you and I. Can you think about all those organisms we've talked about, like earthworms, roundworms, snails? Those are organisms that need really a lot of water to live. Earthworms themselves, their skeleton is majorly because of water. They don't have bones, they don't have an exoskeleton. So if they are taken away from water and it's very dry, then they are likely to desiccate. By desiccate we mean drying out. Something actually applies to plants. If you uproot them so that they no longer have water, they're going to wither. Another hypothesis is that it dissolves mineral salts so that they are easily absorbed by the plant. So it eases plants because plants need these mineral salts, a lot of them, but it cannot get them. The most way it gets them is when they're dissolved within the soil water. So they're dissolved and then the plant can get them, and then not even the plant alone, all the other organisms, they use them. But it's the importance of water to dissolve them so that they can be easily absorbed by those organisms that